You must have had some real pressure on you walking up after Sigamontas versus Bexod.
Funny that you say that because my fight was actually right before them. So yeah, that's just because of the way they cut it. Obviously, they do things differently with the editing and that sort of stuff. But yeah, I actually fought right before Beck. So yeah,
You
yeah.
yourself have a very exciting fighting style that didn't work out this time, but can you tell me, walking into this, did you expect that you were gonna get fight of the season?
Yeah, that's a great question. When I first got the call that I was going to be like possibly on the show, I just thought I'd be perfect just because my fighting style, obviously my story outside. Yeah, I just thought I'd be a great fit for the show. And so I thought for sure, like, okay, I just need to get my foot in the door, fight in front of Dana White, then I'm for sure going to be signed. I had no doubt in my mind. I had high expectations for myself and, put on an amazing show. And unfortunately, I did not get to do that. I fought a really strong wrestler.
Yeah, Ryan, that's like the worst person for you to fight. So what was your plan trying to stop him from taking you down? Was it to just use your takedown defense, or was you gonna throw knees and uppercuts, stuff like that?
Yeah. Yeah, so I've got actually really good knees, and right from the beginning, Alexa and all the coaches saw that, and so we were planning on using my knees to hopefully stop the takedown and to kind of stay low. I talked to Ryan after the fight. And he's like, "Yeah," I'm like, "Yeah." The game plan was kind of stay low. He's like, "Yeah, you're too low." I went to go throw a kick, and I kind of stumbled like from my feet a little bit, and so looking back, I was a bit too low. But obviously, like the game plan was just don't let this motherfucker take you down.
But you must have thought that the possibility of getting taken down was
Yeah.
there. So if you did get taken down, what was the plan then? Was it to go for submission or try to get back up?
I would just look to get up right away. I don't really like to play on the ground a lot. Like I'm very much stand and bang type of guy. If I get taken down, I like to go for chokes a lot. However, like I wouldn't really give up a position for submission and that sort of stuff. So for me, I just like to stand and strike. So
Something I noticed about this episode is that you got very low camera time. Is that something you noticed as well? And if so, did that bother you?
no, it didn't bother me. From what they showed for me, everyone, was talking really highly about me. He won the fight, moved on to the semifinals. I'm sure like that's a huge reason why they gave him more camera time. Them speaking so highly of me during my episode, I was really happy with how things went.
Anyone who has seen your fights know that this performance, it is not what we are used to when you step
Yeah.
into the cage.
I appreciate that, man. No, that means a lot. Yeah.
Can you tell me, have you talked to the UFC? Are they interested in you? Do you have any future plans with them?
I've kind of left that up to my management. Just because I lost that fight, like it doesn't mean that the doors closed at all. I think if anything, it's got me a foot in the door, so to speak, just because they know who I am. I've developed a fan base just from being on the show. Like behind the scenes, a lot of people don't understand. Like they spend a lot of marketing dollars on you and to do all these things and put camera time on you and do this. They want you to succeed. They want you to do well, just so they have all this footage of you. They have all this build up, and they introduce fighters to kind of the world, and so they want to see you do really well. And just because I lost that fight doesn't mean the door shut with the UFC. I definitely will be back.
So it sounds like you really want to get into the UFC. Is that the ultimate goal, or could you just as well fight in a Bellator or something?
The UFC is 100% the top of my priority, but I do have sort of just a kind of bucket list, so to speak. Like when I first began fighting, there's all these different things I wanted to do. I wanted to fight, overseas. I wanted to fight in the States. I wanted to fight on UFC Fight Pass. I wanted to fight on the Ultimate Fighter, and I've checked so many things off my bucket list. But obviously, my ultimate goal is to fight in the UFC. Turning 31 this year, I've got, I think, a few more years to kind of kick at the can for the UFC because they don't really sign many guys that are, above the age of 35.
So outside of fighting, what is something you want to do there? Want to do after you retire, maybe?
Uh, to be honest with you, I haven't really put too much thought into my plans after fighting. I do really enjoy being in the gym. I do really love being a part of the MMA community. It's, I've developed amazing friendships. One thing that kind of I always kind of, teeter-totter around would be maybe the management side of things. I just think that a lot of fighters really don't know how to kind of manage their careers, how to actually get fights, how to kind of put yourself out there because I recently got a manager in 2022, but before that I had like 10 pro fights all on my own, got all my amateur MMA fights, made a lot of connections, and at the end of the day I sort of know how the MMA business works.
Yeah. So have you ever thought about starting your own show? Maybe organize your own fights and start a organization of your own?
That's a great question, actually. I've thought about that too, but the unfortunate part of living in Ontario, where I'm from, commission fees are just ridiculous. So many, loopholes you have to go through, and there's so many different fees. And at the end of the day, you have to put so much money into these events, and like you're really not getting much out of it. Amateur MMA is not allowed in Ontario, and so that in itself doesn't give fighters the opportunity to kind of build their records, build that experience and then get to that next level of becoming a pro just because it's not allowed, it's illegal.
So how do you find your way around that? If it's illegal, do you have Muay Thai fights or something like that, or do you go to America to fight?
So I think my first 5 amateur MMA fights were in Detroit in the United States. And at that point in 2013, 2014, it was really underground. So like you would just basically show up and just fight a guy with no blood work, no this, no that. We'd wear 4-ounce gloves. You're allowed knees to the face. There's no elbows. That was basically really the only differentiating factor at that point. There was no regulating body, and so very dangerous because obviously there's no medicals and that sort of stuff. There's actually a guy that died in the organization that I used to fight for.
So we are gonna wrap this up, but before that, can you tell me what is next? What does the future look like?
Yeah, I can't really say much about. I don't think I could really talk about what's next at like for short term, my goals and that sort of stuff. I have to let the show air and that sort of stuff. But like I would just said, I'm because I lost my fight, I do really see myself coming back to the UFC, and I do have a really fun fighting style. I feel like I inspired a lot of people during my episode. I've gotten so many messages, and I'm sure the UFC, appreciates my story and appreciates my fighting style, and so I could see myself being back in the UFC within 2 fights.
Yeah, your story, that was just straight up heartbreaking to listen to. The day that I watched your episode, I had just gotten back from vacation with my girlfriend, and
Oh
watching
wow,
you talk
yeah,
about that, I was thinking, what if on the vacation she would have met the same fate, you know? So yeah, all the
yeah,
strength to you from
yeah.
picking yourself up from that situation and getting to the point that you're at right now.
Yeah, no, it was definitely something that I made a promise to was like she wanted me to kind of go down this path of achieving my goals and achieving my dreams. They didn't include it in my episode, but I did mention during one of my interviews that like a few weeks prior to her passing away, I like told her like I'd quit MMA for her because I was training so often. And she said, no, like I want you to fight in the UFC, live your dream. And so that was a huge motivating factor for me was to kind of do that in her honor. So
Yeah, so we are gonna wrap this up, but just one more
yeah,
question before we do that. What's the deal with the McDonald's?
They got great McDonald's in Toronto.
yeah. We're just kind of sitting there. It was a media day, and like we're just kind of talking, and then the one girl goes, "Oh, what's your McDonald's order?" I'm like, "Oh, my McDonald's order is this, 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 this," and then depends if I'm hungover or not. Because if I'm hungover, I'll get an extra this, this, and that. So it was just something like it was just like some just fun banter that we were talking about during the media day, and so that's funny that you mentioned that.
Okay, I thought maybe it was some celebrating thing, like maybe you celebrate with McDonald's after winning a fight.
Well, I do that, but yeah, because you know what, during training camp, you have to have a strict diet, and I do love fast food. It tastes really good, and so that was kind of the dynamic of the question. So
Yeah, well, listen, it's been great talking to you, and I can't wait to watch you fight again. If it's in the UFC or any other promotion, I am gonna watch that,
yeah,
believe that. Take care, we're gonna talk some other day,
we
and be
will for
good, brother.
sure. Yeah, man, we will for sure. I appreciate you reaching out. It was you're an awesome guy. So
So be good, we're gonna talk some other day, and go have a McDonald's or something.
I
Bye,
will.
bye.